It started with a bark, not just any bark, the kind that rips through silence like a warning siren. Ellie turned sharply. Her hand instinctively reached for the leash, but Brutus was already gone. "Aisle 9!" a woman shrieked in the distance. The sound of metal crashing echoed across the supermarket. A shopping cart had slammed into a shelf, scattering jars and boxes like broken thoughts. But it wasn't the crash that stopped hearts. It was what lay beside it. A baby carrier, and inside, a wide-eyed infant, miraculously unharmed. Brutus stood between the child and the wreckage, his chest heaving, eyes locked on the far end of the aisle like he still sensed danger. Shoppers clapped. Someone yelled, "That dog just saved that baby!" Phones were out, cameras flashing, cheers followed. But Ellie didn't smile. She knelt beside Brutus, who hadn't moved. "You okay, boy?" she whispered, placing a gentle hand on his neck. He didn't look at her. He kept staring down the aisle. That's when Ellie noticed something. The cart was on its side, wheels still spinning, but the floor wasn't sloped. There was no breeze, nothing that could have caused it to roll like that. She felt a knot in her chest. "You growled before it even moved, didn't you?" she murmured. Brutus gave a low grunt, his tail stiff. The baby began to cry. A worker rushed in and picked her up gently. "Is she yours?" he asked Ellie. "No," Ellie replied, shaking her head. She was alone. The supermarket manager, a heavy-set man with a sweaty brow, pushed through the growing crowd. "Did anyone see what happened? Who left this child here?" People shrugged. A few looked guilty for filming instead of helping. No one had answers. Ellie stood. She was used to reading situations others overlooked. Years in the force had taught her that every odd detail mattered. And Brutus wasn't just any dog. He had served beside her through drug raids, hostage rescues, even an airport bomb. Threat. His instincts had never failed. Back at her truck, she gave Brutus water. He drank, but not much. His eyes kept shifting, uneasy, like he knew something wasn't over. "You're not letting this go, are you?" Ellie asked. Brutus licked her hand, but didn't relax. His muscles were still tight. That night, Ellie lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The news had run the story on every local channel. Hero K9 saves baby in grocery store. Brutus had made headlines. People online were calling him a miracle. But Ellie couldn't shake the image of the spinning cart. Something about it gnawed at her. The next morning, she returned to the store. A few employees recognized her. "You looking for the baby's parents?" one asked. "No," Ellie replied. "I need to see the security footage from yesterday." The manager hesitated. "Are you with the police?" "Retired. But that baby almost died. You don't want a lawsuit." 5 minutes later, Ellie was in a back room, watching grainy footage. Timestamps rolled. The camera over aisle 9 showed a normal morning, until it didn't. She leaned forward. At 10:14 a.m., a figure pushed the cart with the baby in it. Then, walked away fast. Not a run, but a fast walk, like someone wanting to leave without drawing attention. "Pause it," Ellie said. The frame froze on a blurry outline. Hoodie, jeans, no visible face. "Do you have other angles?" she asked. "Dear," manager scrubbed through. The front door camera caught the person exiting. Still no face. But they dropped something. A paper. "Can I see that?" The man paused again. Ellie squinted. "Zoom in," she said. The paper had a logo. It was torn, but part of a name was visible. Horizon Shelter Services. Back in her truck, Ellie searched it up. It was a small foster facility just a few blocks away. Brutus sat up suddenly. His ears perked. He stared out the window like he could already smell the place. "You're way ahead of me, aren't you?" Ellie said. She started the engine. At the shelter, a young receptionist greeted them. "Can I help you?" Ellie flashed a friendly smile. "I'm here about the baby from yesterday. I believe someone from your organization may have been involved." The receptionist looked confused. "We don't place infants. That's social services." "Anyone here ever visit the Westwood Market?" The girl hesitated. "I mean, sometimes. I think Janice shops there." "Is Janice here?" "No, she quit 2 weeks ago." Brutus let out a low growl, his nose pressed against a nearby office. "Door. Is that room used?" Ellie asked. The girl hesitated. "It's the storage room." Brutus started barking, sharp, demanding. "Open it," Ellie said. The girl looked nervous, but unlocked the door. Inside, it was dark. boxes everywhere. But Brutus charged in and sniffed one of the jackets hanging near the back. Then he pawed at something under the desk. Ellie knelt down. Tucked beneath loose papers was a tiny baby sock, pink, stained with formula. The receptionist gasped. "That wasn't here before." Ellie turned to her. "Someone was here. Someone who left in a hurry." Brutus whined softly and sat beside the sock. "Good boy," Ellie said quietly. But her heart was racing now. This wasn't a random accident. Someone had left that baby on purpose, and Brutus had known the moment they walked into that store. He didn't just save a child. He uncovered the first thread in something much darker, and Ellie wasn't about to walk away from it. Ellie sat up in bed, staring into the dark. Brutus was pacing again, back and forth across the floorboards, nails clicking like a slow clock ticking away her peace. He stopped at the window, whined low, and pressed his nose to the glass. "What is it?" she whispered, pulling her blanket tighter. Brutus didn't look at her. He just stared out like something, or someone, was watching. Ellie swung her legs over the bed and stood. It wasn't the first night like this. Since the incident, Brutus hadn't been the same. He used to sleep through thunderstorms. Now he jolted at creaks and shadows. She poured herself some water, watching Brutus carefully. "You're not letting this go, huh?" He turned and walked to the front door, tail stiff, ears sharp. Ellie sighed. "All right, let's go." The parking lot of the supermarket was empty, bathed in dull orange lights. She sat in her truck with Brutus in the passenger seat, just watching the entrance. It was silent now, but in her mind, she kept seeing that cart, the way Brutus had moved without hesitation, the growl before the danger. "I trust you," she murmured. Brutus gave a soft chuff. Inside, the manager was surprised to see her again. "Back already?" he asked. "I need to watch the footage again." He scratched his head. "You already saw it." "I missed something," she said. Reluctantly, he led her to the back office. Ellie sat down in front of the screen and rewound to the moment that had been eating away at her. "Play it slower," she said. At 10:14 a.m., the cart sat motionless. Then, just as she'd remembered, it jerked forward. "Pause it," she snapped. She leaned in, eyes narrowing. A hand, just for a second. A gloved hand pushing the cart from the far end of the aisle. "There," she whispered. "You see that?" The manager squinted. "Could be anyone. It's not just anyone. That baby was placed in danger. This wasn't an accident. It was a setup." Back in the truck, Brutus let out a huff and rested his head on her lap. She could feel his heartbeat, faster than usual. "You knew," she said softly. "You felt it before I saw it." The next morning, Ellie drove to her old precinct. She hadn't walked these halls in almost 2 years. The coffee still smelled the same. The paint still peeled on the stair railings. But the faces had changed. Detective O. Miles greeted her with a raised brow. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I need help," Ellie said. "Something's wrong." She laid out everything. The baby, the cart, the hand in the footage. But his smile faded the longer she talked. "You think someone tried to hurt a baby in a store?" he asked. "I don't think I know." "Ellie, you're not on the force anymore. You sure this isn't just you holding on?" She felt a sting in her chest. "You think I imagined a baby in a cart about to get crushed? I'm saying maybe you're seeing more than is there." Brutus barked sharply from outside the office. Miles looked toward the door. "Your dog still doesn't like me." "Doesn't bark unless he has a reason," Ellie said coldly. But she knew then she wasn't getting back up. That night, back at home, Brutus refused to rest. He sat by the door, eyes fixed, like he expected someone to show up. "Why can't you relax?" Ellie whispered, sitting beside him. Brutus looked at her, then back at the door. He gave a low growl. Ellie rubbed her temples. Her head ached from thinking, from doubt, from worry. She stood suddenly. "You want to show me something?" Brutus jumped up, tail raised, not wagging, just tense. Ellie grabbed her flashlight, clipped on his leash, and stepped into the night. Instead of leading toward the park or their usual walking route, Brutus pulled toward the woods behind the store. The trail was narrow, and Ellie stumbled over a root, cursing softly. "You better know where you're going." Brutus moved with certainty, nose to the ground. Then he stopped. Dead still. Ellie followed his gaze. There, near a tree, was something half buried in leaves. She crouched down and brushed the debris aside. A pacifier. Brutus whined, sniffing it, and lay down beside it. Ellie stared at it, the same brand the baby in the cart had. She remembered the tiny print on the handle. She looked at Brutus. This was hers, wasn't it? He licked the pacifier gently, then looked up at her, and something in his eyes, deep, pained, made her chest tighten. This wasn't over. Whoever left that baby hadn't just vanished. Something darker was behind it. Something Brutus had sensed before anyone else. She picked up the pacifier and slipped it into her coat. "We're on our own, boy," she whispered. Brutus stood and leaned against her leg. "I'm listening now," she said. Because those eyes, those warning eyes, were trying to tell her everything she needed to know, and she was finally ready to hear it. Ellie tightened her grip on the pacifier as she climbed the shelter steps. Brutus was ahead of her, ears forward, muscles tense. They had followed his instincts before. Now they were following something even deeper, his fear. Inside, the shelter lobby was quiet, too quiet for midday. A woman at the front desk gave Ellie a polite smile. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm looking for the baby who was found in the shopping cart," Ellie said. The woman blinked. "That was last week, I think. She was placed here until the state picked her up." Ellie nodded. "I just need a look at the logs. Are you family?" "No, but I'm the reason she's alive." Brutus growled softly. The woman looked nervous, but before she could say anything else, a man in a gray janitor's uniform entered from the hallway. He didn't say a word, just mopped slowly, eyes low. Brutus froze, then let out a deep, sharp bark. The janitor didn't even flinch. "Brutus." "Quiet," Ellie said, but Brutus didn't stop. He growled louder, barking again and again, teeth bare, fur rising down his back. The janitor met Ellie's eyes. His expression was empty, cold. Then he turned and walked right back down the hall. "Hey!" Ellie shouted, following, but when she reached the corridor, it was empty. No doors open, no sound, just air that felt colder than before. "Where'd he go?" she asked. The woman from the desk had followed. "Who?" "The janitor." "We don't have one today," she said. "Ours called out sick." Ellie's heart thumped hard. "Then who just walked in and out?" The woman looked confused. "No one's supposed to be back there." Brutus whined beside her, pacing the hall like he was trying to follow a scent. Ellie pulled out her badge, the one she hadn't used in 2 years. "I need to see your intake logs for that baby now." The woman hesitated, then led her to the office. Ellie flipped through the logbook. The writing was neat, but too neat. Names were printed, not signed. The timestamps looked off. One entry even listed a caseworker who had died 6 months ago. "These are fake," Ellie muttered. Brutus nudged a cabinet, pawing at the base. Ellie crouched down. "What is it, boy?" He scratched again. Something thin and white stuck out. From under the cabinet, Ellie reached in and pulled it out. A small cloth, baby soft, pink, with a faded rabbit print. Her hands trembled. She remembered it from the scene. Brutus sniffed it once, then backed away with a whimper. Ellie lifted the cloth to her nose. Her stomach turned. "Chloroform," she whispered. The woman behind her gasped. "What?" This was used to knock someone out. Brutus growled again, tail low, body tense. Ellie stood, her voice sharp. "Who else has access to this room?" "Only employees," the woman said, her voice shaking. I don't understand." "That man who just left," Ellie said. "He wasn't a janitor. He planted this, maybe worse." Brutus barked again and charged toward the back exit. Ellie followed, pushing through the heavy door, but outside, there was no one. Just an empty alley and the hum of a distant car. Brutus stood still, eyes fixed on the distance. He was just here, Ellie whispered. They checked security cameras, but every tape from the past 12 hours was blank. "System crashed last night," the IT guy said, shrugging. "Glitch or something?" Ellie stared at the monitor. "That's no glitch. That's someone covering their tracks." That night, back at home, Ellie spread the cloth on the table. She called Miles again. "There's more going on," she told him. "The shelter logs are fake. A man pretended to be a janitor. He left behind a cloth soaked in chloroform." "You have proof?" he asked. "I've got the cloth." And Prince? No, he was wearing gloves. There was silence on the line. Then Miles said, Ellie, I don't know what game you're caught in, but you're not on the force anymore. I'm not asking for permission, Ellie snapped. I'm telling you someone used that baby as bait, and now they're cleaning up loose ends. Brutus barked once. Ellie looked at him. He was standing by the window again, eyes sharp, body ready. They know I'm asking questions, she whispered. They're watching. Brutus whined low, and Ellie knelt in front of him, placing her hand on his chest. You found that cloth. You chased the scent. You knew. Brutus licked her face once, then leaned into her hand. You saved that baby once, she said. Now we have to save her again. Because something told Ellie this was only the beginning. Someone out there didn't want the truth found, and they were willing to do anything to bury it. Ellie sat at her kitchen table, files spread out, coffee gone cold. The baby wasn't the only one. There were 3 others, all left in strange places. One at a gas station, another in a library bathroom, the last at a park bench in the rain. All taken to shelters, all vanished. No adoption records, no transfer papers, just gone. Brutus lay beside her, eyes half closed, but his ears twitched every time the wind knocked against the windows. Who would do this? She muttered, flipping pages. Why babies? Why fake logs? Brutus let out a low whine. Ellie looked at the dates. 2 months, 4 babies, and not one trace left behind. She grabbed her coat. We're going for a drive. Rain poured down hard, the sky almost black, even though it wasn't yet evening. Thunder rolled in the distance as Ellie drove through back roads, eyes fixed ahead, mind racing. Suddenly, Brutus barked. Not once, 3 times, loud and sharp. Brutus, what is it? He pawed at the glove box. Ellie frowned. There's nothing in there. But he barked again and scratched harder. She reached over and opened it. Inside, under some old maps and a flashlight, was a photo. It was curled at the edges and stained like it had gotten wet. Ellie pulled it out slowly. It was a group shot. Hospital. Staff smiling. A woman in scrubs stood at the center. Her name tag read Rena. Ellie felt her breath catch. Rena? She remembered that name. 2 years ago, Rena had worked in a children's ward. She had given a tip about something horrible. Newborns being transferred, but never showing up at the receiving hospitals. Rena had gone missing a week later. Case cold. No leads. Ellie stared at the photo. The ink had bled, but the eyes. Rena's eyes were kind, brave, like she had known she was risking something by speaking out. How did this get here? She whispered. Brutus rested his head on her shoulder, tail flicking once. You're leading me somewhere, she said softly. Aren't you? She remembered now. That photo had been in her old case folder, but she'd boxed everything up and stored it when she left the force. There was no reason it should be in the glove box, unless someone wanted her to find it. Thunder cracked overhead. She pulled over to the side of the road, headlights cutting through the storm. Brutus sat upright, eyes locked on something in the fash distance. An old billboard half-lit by lightning. The hospital Rena had worked at. Ellie stared. That place shut down 2 years ago. Brutus barked once. She turned the car around and drove toward it. The building looked haunted. Boards over windows. Weeds growing through cracks in the sidewalk. But something about it felt alive, like it was holding its breath, waiting. Brutus growled, nose pressed to the window. Do you smell something? He barked and scratched at the door. She parked and stepped out, pulling her coat tight. Brutus led the way, staying low, ears up. The front door was chained shut, but a side window had been broken. Ellie hesitated. You sure? Brutus growled. Again, then slipped through the gap. Inside, the hospital smelled of mold and dust. But beneath that, something else. Something chemical. Chloroform. Her heart pounded as she followed Brutus down the hallway. He stopped at a door marked Records. It was open. Inside were stacks of boxes, files, photos, names she recognized. She pulled out a folder, baby number 47, unnamed, found behind a diner. Another. Baby number 51, left at a laundromat. They weren't abandoned. They were taken, sold. Ellie backed away, her hands shaking. Brutus whined. We were never supposed to find this, she whispered. From outside, a noise, a car. Someone was here. Ellie turned off her flashlight. Brutus stood in front of her, teeth bared. A shadow passed by the broken window, then silence. Whoever it was, they didn't come in. Not yet. She looked at Brutus. We're close, boy, but this is bigger than I thought. He pressed against her leg, warm and strong. Let's go. We have what we need. Back in the car, Ellie locked the doors and looked at the photo again. Rena tried to warn us. She knew. And now someone's using these shelters to hide it all. Brutus let out a soft bark, resting his head in her lap. We're not done, Ellie said. Not even close. Ellie followed Brutus as he pulled her deeper into the woods, behind the abandoned clinic. The sky was heavy with thick clouds, and rain started to fall in soft drops, soaking the damp leaves beneath their feet. Brutus's nose was low to the ground, his paws moving carefully through the thick brush. Ellie barely kept up, heart pounding in her chest. She trusted Brutus. If he was leading her here, it meant something important. The clinic had been closed, for years, left to rot with broken windows and rusted signs. It was the kind of place people avoided, and that's why Ellie thought it was the perfect hiding spot. When they reached a small clearing, Brutus stopped abruptly and sniffed around. A pile of leaves and trash. Ellie crouched down beside him, her breath fogging in the cold air. She pulled away branches and dirt until a rusty white van came into view. Its paint was chipped and the windows were dusty, but inside, Ellie spotted something moving. She looked at Brutus. His tail was stiff and his ears were up, alert but calm. They were close. Ellie crept closer to the van's sliding door and saw it was slightly open. Slowly, she pushed it wider and peered inside. The van smelled stale, mixed with the sharp scent of chemicals. On the floor were torn blankets, dirty and stained. Then, she spotted something that froze her blood. A small baby bracelet. It was the same one from the supermarket baby. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. Brutus, she whispered. This is it. This is where they're keeping the babies. Suddenly, headlights pierced the darkness from the edge of the woods. Ellie's heart leapt. Someone was coming. She pulled Brutus behind a tree just as a man stepped into the clearing. His face was hidden in shadows, but Ellie could see the crowbar in his hand. The man moved slowly toward the van, scanning the area like a hunter looking for prey. Brutus growled low, warningly. Ellie's pulse raced as the man's eyes flicked in their direction. "Get out of here!" the man hissed, voice cold and hard. Ellie didn't move. Brutus's growl grew louder, threatening. The man swung the crowbar, aiming for where he thought the dog was hiding. Ellie ducked just in time, feeling the wind from the heavy blow. Brutus sprang out, teeth bared, and charged straight at the man. The man tried to push Brutus away, but the dog's grip was fierce, biting the man's arm. "Let go!" the man screamed, struggling to free himself. Ellie scrambled to her feet, ready to help. But the man suddenly released Brutus and ran back toward the edge of the woods. Breathing hard, Ellie grabbed the man's abandoned phone from the ground. She flicked it on and found a single new message. Waiting. The text sent a chill through her. Delivery failed. Moving to Plan B. Ellie looked down at Brutus, whose fur was damp and eyes shining with fierce loyalty. "They're planning something else, aren't they?" she said quietly. Brutus nudged her hand as if to say, "We're not done yet." She slid the van, ducker fully open, and stepped inside. The van was bare except for some plastic containers filled with medical supplies and a small cot with more dirty blankets. Ellie's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a hiding place. It was a prison for the eye. Babies and whoever was behind this had been careful to cover their tracks. Ellie's phone buzzed suddenly. It was a call from her old precinct. She hesitated, then answered. "Ellie, what have you found?" the voice asked. "I'm at the van in the woods. I found the baby's bracelet. There's evidence here. Sedatives, blankets, someone tried to attack me and Brutus," Ellie said, her voice shaking with urgency. There was silence on the other end. Then, "Be careful. We're sending backup." Ellie ended the call and looked down at Brutus. "This is just the start, boy. We've got a fight ahead of us." As the rain began to pour heavier, Ellie knew one thing. Whatever this plan was, they had to stop it before more innocent lives were lost. And with Brutus by her side, she was ready to face the darkness. Ellie's breath caught as Brutus scratched furiously at the rusted cellar door beneath the old daycare. The building was empty, cold and silent except for his soft whining. She wiped sweat from her forehead and pushed the heavy door. It creaked loudly but gave way. "All right, boy. Let's see what you found." They stepped down the narrow stairs into darkness. Ellie's phone flashlight barely cut through the thick shadows. At the bottom, she froze. Cribs lined the walls, some broken, others stained. Empty bottles and torn blankets littered the floor. The air smelled stale and sick. Then Brutus barked sharply, running toward a corner where two tiny infants lay weak and barely breathing. Ellie's hands trembled as she scooped one up, feeling its fragile warmth. "You're safe now," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. Brutus didn't stop there. He padded toward a wall and started digging eagerly at the drywall. Suddenly, a small, worn shoe fell out. Ellie caught it, heart pounding harder. Another child was still trapped somewhere. "We have to find them," she said, voice firm but desperate. Her phone buzzed. Backup was finally on the way, but the darkness felt endless. Brutus pressed closer, his eyes full of determination. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The daycare had been silent for months, but that silence hid a terrible secret. Ellie stood in the empty room where Brutus had found the babies, her heart heavy but hopeful. The evidence they uncovered was enough to bring down a trafficking ring. This place, it was just the tip of the iceberg, she said quietly, glancing down at Brutus, who sat alert beside her. The arrests came swiftly after Ellie handed over everything to the police. Men and women involved in the ring were taken away in cuffs. The media called it a major victory against child trafficking. As the babies were reunited with their families, tears flowed freely. Mothers held their children tight, whispering promises, never to let go again. Ellie watched the scene unfold, her own baby safe now because of Brutus's unyielding courage. One afternoon, as she cradled the baby in her arms, she looked down at Brutus. "You knew. From the start. You knew," she whispered. The dog rested his head gently on the child's lap, his eyes soft and calm. After all the danger, the sleepless nights, and the endless searching, peace had finally come. Ellie smiled through her tears. "You're my hero, Brutus." And in that moment, Brutus, the savior of the silent, found his own kind of happiness. If Brutus's story moved you, please like and share this video to help raise awareness about those who can't speak for themselves. Comment below how animals have changed your life or inspired you. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories of hope and courage. Together, we can make a difference.